They all have lines through there. That means.
Okay, it's 9 o'clock now, so I think that we'll go ahead and get started. Good morning and welcome to the Iowa Core Advocate Network. My name is Destiny Eldridge, and I am the literacy consultant at the Iowa Department of Education. And I'd also like to introduce my co-host and co-lead. Her name is Lee Belleville, and she is an instructional coach in Indianola School District at Indianola Middle School. She is also a member of the statewide literacy leadership team. This morning, you probably noticed as you logged into Zoom that you are muted. And the reason being, we are going to utilize the chat feature instead of the microphone in an attempt to keep our webinar moving, and as well as to capture thinking so that we can provide that to folks on the website where this PowerPoint and webinar will be archived. Just so you know, everything is being recorded today, including the chat. Secondly, we will ask that you please stay muted for the duration of the webinar. However, if you feel the need to speak, just indicate that in the chat, and one of us will be able to unmute you. So let's go ahead and get started going through our first few slides. So first of all, just to establish what this network is all about, our purpose, as stated in the correspondence thus far, is to support teachers and leaders across the state in their work to align instructional practice to the expectations of the rigorous Iowa academic standards. Our goal is to really connect people across the state of Iowa, educators, and that can be teachers, our teacher leaders, coaches, administrators, but we really want to be able to empower you with a deeper understanding of the shifts, and then we also want to provide for you information as to where to find and best use standards-aligned resources, tools, and instructional practices in ELA literacy. And so the impetus for the Iowa Core Advocate Network, just a little bit of background. It began with the Literacy Standards Review, which took place during 2016-2017. This is prompted by Governor Branstad's Executive Order 83, which calls for an ongoing review of academic standards, including public comment. As part of this review, we did hold a survey of stakeholders, and that was conducted as part of the process, and it was open for about a month. We had a little bit over 5,000 respondents, and the data was disaggregated by AEA, or constituent group. And so these next few slides I'm going to go over rather quickly, but remember that you will be able to access these slides following this webinar if you would like to look deeper into the numbers. But we started off with, you can see from which AEA the respondent identified with, and then which stakeholder group they primarily represented. You'll see that primarily we had teachers and teacher leaders. And then it shows the breakdown of the subjects and the grade levels that they teach. The study of implementation specifically was designed to assist the department in studying the implementation of the standards at schools and districts. And the data here really represents participants' opinions. So we wanted to share a little bit of information. At this time, 83 out of 159 people who responded felt that they had fully incorporated the literacy standards into their practice. However, 38 and 37 felt some standards and some areas of their teaching they were incorporating it into. when we look at the district's current level of implementation, we still had quite a few folks in the transitional phase even last year. 64 out of 158 who answered, while 57 felt that they were in full implementation. The respondents, when they responded to whether or not they had received adequate ongoing support to implement the Iowa literacy standards, most agreed, 66 out of 157. However, 42 disagreed. The extent that educational materials are aligned with the literacy standards, the majority here said somewhat aligned. And then the last bit of information that we gathered is which of the following would help you to feel better prepared to teach the Iowa literacy standards. And the breakdown by percentages is as follows. 59% of respondents needed help with summative assessment, 58% formative assessment, 54% additional resources, 49% learning targets, 39% instructional shifts, 37% planning instruction, planning lessons, and then 22% understanding content. This information then led us to go to our statewide literacy leadership team, which is a department run team, and the team is made up of members from local AEAs, LEAs, and institutes of higher ed. As part of this group last year, when I came in, last year was my first year at the department, we brought in some training from Achieve the Core. And Achieve the Core is a nonprofit organization that was put together by folks who partnered with other leaders in the field, but predominantly people who were working on writing the standards and were leaders of writing the core. This past spring, we brought together our team, and along with a couple of Achieve the Core core advocates, to build capacity within the team so that then we could better support schools in their work. And now what we're doing is we want to reach out to those of you who are in the field, and we want to provide you with the same information, and hopefully it will be more widespread. Lastly, the connection to student achievement partners, and where I'm very fortunate to get a lot of my information from the national level, is I do have a membership on the National ELA State Collaboratives on Assessment and Student Standards, which is what we call the SCAS. It's part of the Chief State School Officers. And the lead, Sue Pimentel, a lead writer of the Common Core Standards, is a founding partner of Student Achievement Partners. The SCAS brings together other people like me in my position from all of the different states, and we get together to solve complex problems impacting the states. One of our main goals is to develop and implement high standards and valid assessment systems. And through them, Student Achievement Partners connected me with Lee, who was an established core advocate in Iowa. So that's a little bit of background about how this came to be and what we hope to do in the future. And what we'll do is we're going to go ahead and jump right into the content of the webinar. And I'm going to hand you over to Lee. And I'm going to have Lee, let's see here, let's unmute you. And Lee, are you able to share your screen now, or am I still sharing?
I can share my screen.
Okay.
And so far we haven't had any questions, except there are a couple of participants that do not have sound, although it does appear that the majority do.
Okay.
So I would just recommend that for those participants, take a look in the chat. Destiny, you might be able to help them troubleshoot.
Sure.
But just double check, everyone, that your volume is turned up, and she'll put that in the chat in case you can't hear me right now. But we'll keep moving forward, and as a reminder, this is going to be recorded, so if for some reason you were not able to hear it during the process, you'll be able to go back through and listen to what you've missed. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with the content piece. And I'm going to share my screen here, and all of you should be able to see the presentation as I take you through. I am going to kind of come in and out of the actual presentation because I want to take a couple of minutes periodically to go to the internet and show everyone where exactly to go to find these different pieces, and I will try not to go too quickly with those pieces. However, please know, and I'll remind at the end of the webinar as well, you can reach out to me or to Destiny at any time via email, and we can help you to find these different pieces if you're having any difficulty. Also, this presentation, and we'll cover this at the end as well, is going to be shared with you, so several of these things are already linked for you, so you'll be able to go back and find these resources as well. She had just mentioned that we had shared and presented with SAP, and one of the things that we had shared is regarding the 3 shifts that are demanded by the Common Core. So for several of you who are on this call and who were in attendance last spring, this is going to be a revisit of this information. However, we are going to keep circling back around to this particular piece because it is extremely important and it's the foundation of what we're doing. So if you take a look at the screen, there are 3 shifts demanded by Common Core for English Language Arts and Literacy. And these are the most important instructional shifts by the Common Core. So we have the first being text complexity, which is the regular practice with complex text and its academic language. Also, number 2 would be evidence. So reading, writing, and speaking grounded in evidence from text, both literary and informational. And then the third is knowledge. So looking at building knowledge through content-rich nonfiction. We also asked all of you to read over a 1-page document with more information regarding each of those pieces. So we're going to talk more about that. I did want to point out, linked within the presentation, and you're going to receive this presentation, if you click here, it will take you to a different document that I thought might be nice for you to just have as a reference. And you can take a look at this. This is from Engage New York, and it is also regarding these shifts demanded by the Common Core. They do actually list 6 shifts. So if you take a look at the handout, they have shift 1, balancing informational and literary text, 2, knowledge in the disciplines, 3, staircase of complexity, 4, text-based answers, 5, writing from sources, and also 6, academic vocab. However, you're going to notice that these are all the same concepts, and that you can build a bridge between these 6 shifts and the 3 that we actually identified through the resources provided by SAP. So this is also just a nice reference too, because I know some of you on the call may be instructional coaches and you are not necessarily content specific. So this will also address shifts in mathematics as well. So I think it's just a helpful reference to have. We will explore those ELA standards through working with the anchor standards and identifying those relationships with the standards in those 3 shifts. So I just wanted to point that out to you as a resource, and that is included in your presentation. And then for the instructional shifts discussion, independently prior to the webinar, we asked that everyone read the Common Core shifts for English Language Arts and Literacy. For some of you, if you joined us a little bit later and you did not have an opportunity to do that, I would recommend after the webinar to take some time and read through this document. And as I mentioned previously, if you were in attendance in the spring, you've already taken a look at this. So it's just good to revisit and refresh in terms of what each of these would mean. And then there was also a graphic organizer that is relating to processing these shifts. And so with that particular graphic organizer, and again, if you haven't had the opportunity to do this yet, I would recommend it because it just gives you that opportunity to share with us any of the opportunities you are able to identify and also challenges. So maybe for those of you who have found different challenges that you want to share out with the group and that you would like to have addressed, then we can do that. So for this first one, this is a pretty easy organizer to fill out. It's not very time consuming, but it just gets you thinking about what is that shift and why is this shift important? So go ahead and take some time if you haven't already done so. And after the webinar, go ahead and just write down a sentence or two about what is the shift, why is this shift for each of those 3. And then also there's an opportunity there for you to list out opportunities and challenges. There is actually, and this piece right here is a way for us to collect your information. So I'm going to leave this Padlet up, and then that way if you have not had an opportunity to transfer over your thoughts, I would like you to do that. I'm going to explain to you why. When I started to take a look at this Padlet and the information that we were receiving, we were kind of taking a look at these challenges. And so, for example, for Shift 1, it talks about regular practice with complex text and academic language. So here we have, obviously, one of the opportunities: higher quality text will re-energize teachers and students, which some of you may have noticed, especially if you are starting to adopt new curriculum and new texts, and that might help to energize your staff. However, the challenge that's listed here I think is very helpful in having us to guide us in moving forward. So if you take a look at the challenge, it says reservations of teachers and administrators who believe the texts are out of reach for most kids. So when I think about that and I'm looking at these different challenges that are listed, chances are if this particular coach or teacher has had this come up, then there's probably others who have signed up who have also had to deal with this challenge. Or if you start adopting new curriculum and start looking at those changes, it may come up in the future. So an idea that Destiny and I were talking about is the fact to take a look at those challenges and keep getting that feedback from all of you. So yes, we'll keep looking at these shifts, and we're going to keep doing these. We're going to get into the deep dives, and we're going to take a look at the resources offered by Achieve the Core. But we also want to take a look at how can we help to prepare all of you as advocates. So using these challenges, I was thinking about who would be an excellent person to come in and talk to the group the next webinar based upon this challenge and what we want to do to help build that bridge and help everyone to feel prepared as advocates. So I know that sometimes the tough part is that when you're first learning, or even if you have that information, how do you articulate that to others who maybe don't have that same knowledge base or those same experiences? And so you're trying to figure out, how do I communicate this in a way to help them to also understand, which that might go beyond just giving them a handout or a document that shows why this is important or why we need text complexity. It might be, providing all of you with the tools and the narrative that this is the information that you could share verbally when you are in that type of a situation. So that is what we're going to help to prepare you for. So I reached out to someone who is very knowledgeable in terms of the shifts. And to start out our next webinar, we are going to have a speaker who's going to be able to join us on a call. And her name is Lisa Potts. Some of you may have heard of her, but she is the Director of English Language Arts Review with edreports.org. And she's going to help to provide some insights and some personal experiences which may assist in helping you to move forward in terms of these challenges. And what we want to do, and this is why I would like all of you to continue to update this Padlet, because you are giving us ideas too. We want to know what has been challenging for you up to this point. Or moving forward this year, what are some pieces that are coming up, things that you would like to have additional assistance with? Or even if we are sharing out information in particular about a particular shift, is there something that you still need a little bit more information, or you need some resources, or you want us to address something specific? Then this is going to be an opportunity for you to voice that, and then we can address those challenges as they come up and hopefully help to prepare you and give you the tools to be Iowa Core advocates. So that was the piece that I definitely wanted to spend a minute to talk about with all of you. And again, have that opportunity that if you have not taken the time to get onto the Padlet and share your ideas from the organizer, please just take a few minutes to do that this week, and we can take a look at that again. Now, for the group discussion for this particular piece, this is actually an activity. If you would like to do so, we, during the last spring, did this activity, and it was actually a combination of representatives from Heartland, and we had instructional coaches there, and there were also teachers present. And so we just organized it a little bit differently because we were face-to-face. So I wanted to give you all an idea of the way that if you are either in a PLC group, if you're a teacher and you're working with others in your PLC group, and you feel like you want to talk a little bit more about these shifts with them and to consider your curriculum and to do some planning with them, then you could do this activity. Also, if you're a coach and you would like to, you could go ahead and lead an activity that looks more as a substantive conversation, where you can give them these tools. So you have the handout that's linked here. You also have the organizer for processing the shifts. My recommendation would be is if you're working with a large group, that you have all of them fill in the organizer first independently, as we asked all of you to do. And then what you can do is have them actually come together in groups and talk about those shifts and have them discuss some of those challenges and those opportunities with each other in small groups. And then what we did, we took just a little bit different approach, and I wanted to share this with you because this could be an option for you, again, if you are working with either a PLC group or if you are working with other coaches or teachers. This is the one from the spring. And I did keep this up. I thought that this was an excellent activity for everyone there, and they were making wonderful connections. We always want to anchor everything we're doing in the core. So this particular Padlet, if you take a look, it's Iowa Core Group Processing Padlet. How did the previous task and instructional practices address Iowa Core literacy standards? So, and then which standards specifically? So what we did is we had all of them take some time to actually go through that core and look at, this is the activity that we just went through. How are these actual standards being addressed? And so when you look here, there is some, I'll just share the first few with you, but Maria had mentioned initiate and participate effectively in a range of collaborative discussions, one-on-one, in groups, and teacher-led, with diverse partners on grades 11, 12 topics, texts, and issues. Building on others' ideas and expressing their own clearly and persuasively. So, and if you keep looking and scrolling down, and you can take a look at this yourself too and go through it, there were many different connections. So anything that we're doing as coaches, for the coaches on the call, or any representatives from Heartland who might be on the call, we want to ensure that we are incorporating these different strategies and we are rolling out this information in a way that shows that these are activities you can actually pull into your classroom at any level. So if you take a look, you can connect to those standards, and you can also look at how can we actually create this, build this understanding in a way that's meaningful, and show them here are some strategies that you could use with your students. So that was a piece that I wanted to share with you, and because I think it's important, we want to make it as meaningful as possible. So that is going to be there for you to take a look at it. I'm going to leave that up. And for the next piece, I wanted to talk to all of you about the instructional practice guide. This was a part that we had actually included in our spring training as well. This can be used as a coaching and a teacher self-evaluation tool. So what I wanted to do is go ahead and share with you what makes instructional practice aligned. So this particular tool that I'm going to share with you, that we will often refer to as the IQG, is designed around the 3 core actions that encompass the shifts in instructional practice required by college and career-ready standards. And then if you look at 1, 2, and 3, we have focus each lesson on a high-quality text or multiple texts, employ questions and tasks, both oral and written, that are text-specific and accurately address the analytical thinking required by the grade level standards. And then 3, provide all students with opportunities to engage in the work of the lesson. So for each core action, it would consist of individual indicators which describe teacher and student behaviors that exemplify Common Core aligned instruction. This is what the actual IPG instructional practice guide would look like for coaching. So this one in particular is just a screenshot. I'm going to take you to the website here in a minute. But this one is for ELA and literature, and we have 3 through 12 lesson. So right here, I want to point out though that there are other content areas. So when I take you to the website, I'm going to show you what those look like. And I'm also going to show you exactly that if you are starting from scratch and going to the website, how do you get there? Because sometimes it can be, if you don't have this direct link or if it's not bookmarked, I just want to ensure that all of you can remember how to navigate there and how to get there. So this link that is in the presentation will take you directly to printable versions. So we have for K2, ELA and literacy. So I'm going to pull this one up so you can view the file with me. This particular PDF, like I said, you can print it out. However, I'm also going to show you that there is a digital version. And this one's taking a minute to pull up here. Okay. Try again. There, it's working. Okay, so we have an IQG Coaching. So we have, if you scroll down here, there's a spot where you're going to fill in the date, teacher name, school, etc., all of that information. And then if you keep scrolling down, we have Core Action 1 for reading and listening comprehension. You focus each lesson on a high-quality text or multiple texts. So there's wonderful reminders in this particular guide that you can refer to. And in this particular case, it could be either for teacher self-reflection, so they can go through and they can complete this and reflect, and then they could meet with their PLC group. And I'm going to show you an example of this. Or it can be for a coach to sit down with a teacher and actually work through this together. And that's going to be an example that I will show you. So we have for indicators, and I'm not going to go through this for all of them, but I just kind of want to give you a picture of what this looks like. A majority of the lesson is spent listening to reading, writing, or speaking about texts. And then they would rate this. Yes, the lesson is focused on a text or multiple texts. Or no, there is no text under consideration in this lesson. And then B, the texts are above the complexity level expected for the grade and time in the school year. And then they would circle, yes, the texts are above both the qualitative and quantitative complexity expected for the grade and time in the school year, or no, they are not. And then C, the texts exhibit exceptional craft and thought and or provide useful information where appropriate. The texts are richly illustrated. And then again, they go through and rate that piece. There's also a spot here, and I realize it's small and it's kind of gray, but you can also check if it was not observed. So if you're actually in and you're looking at a lesson and you're observing that, whether it be a teacher who's looking at another teacher's lesson and observing for them, or if it's a coach going in to observe. So this is going to be useful in several different ways. And then we have indicators, note evidence observed or gathered for each indicator. So this one for foundational skills. So A, the foundational skills being taught are aligned to the standards for this grade, and then you would rate that, fully aligned or does not align. Instruction and materials address foundational skills by attending to phonological awareness, concepts of print, letter recognition, phonemic patterns, and word structure, and then you would rate yes or no. So you can continue to go through, I'm kind of trying to keep an eye on time here too, but you can look at all of these different pieces. You'll notice there's not a lot of room to write here, but as I mentioned, it is digital, so it kind of depends on the teacher, and it's not necessarily a bad thing because you don't want it to be something that's going to be so time-consuming that they're not going to want to take the time to do it. You just want it to be meaningful. So I feel as though these rating systems are going to help with that significantly, but this gives just enough room to just have them jot down a few notes so that they can go back and remember what they're going to have during that discussion, what pieces they want to talk about. So if you keep scrolling down, it covers all of those. And then there is, and I wanted to point this out to you, beyond the lesson discussion guide. So if you take a look at some of these questions, this is designed for your post-observation conversation. And again, that can take place with teachers together, or it could take place with a coach and a teacher. So it gives you different options. But here's just a couple of examples of different questions. Number one, why was this text selected for today's lesson? Is this text one of a sequence of texts designed to build knowledge? Please explain. Or number 6, how are students monitored as they progress toward being able to read and comprehend grade level literary and informational texts independently and proficiently? So it just gives you some ideas and different things to think about when you're actually having that post-observation discussion. So that gives you some ideas there in terms of the ELA literacy. But again, I want to point out here, we have mathematics, K8. We have 312 for ELA literacy, so there's 2 different ones because obviously you're going to want to focus on foundational skills at K2. High school, okay, for mathematics. If you keep scrolling down, there's also a history and social studies. That's going to be one of the examples I'm going to show you coming up. So we have grades 6 through 12 here. And again, you can view filed or you can download it. There's also a supplement for reflection over the course of the year. So if you begin working with teachers at the beginning of this year for history and social studies, and then they begin to do these different grades 6 through 12 documents, you can actually use this as well, so then they can kind of look at the whole picture and the reflection over the course of the year. What we're going to focus on right now are just these first pieces to get you started. And then we have science and technical subjects, grades 6 through 12, and again, there's a supplement for reflection over the course of the year. Now, if you were actually in the main page, I want to show you how you're going to get to this. So if I click on Achieve the Core, this is what the main page looks like right now. If you click on, because there's a lot of resources in here, and they're wonderful resources, but we want to ensure that all of you know where to go to find these. So for planning and reflection, I would go to Instructional Practice, and then right underneath, I'm going to click on Instructional Practice Guide Coaching Tool. And so when I pull this up, it's going to look a little different than the link that we had placed into the presentation for you. This will actually give you your digital version. So it really depends on the teacher and how they prefer to operate in terms of doing their notes and their just when they're doing their own reflection. So the teacher that I worked with in particular, I printed out a copy and she wrote it out. And then we actually had a conversation about that while she was doing that piece, and we used it as a planning tool. So if you look here, though, at the digital version, if they're doing this independently and they tend to do things more on the computer all the time, you can go through this part and complete it digitally. So this is where you can select the subject. So let's say I wanted to do social studies and history. You can add in your details, and then you go through and complete the form. So that's another option that I wanted to make sure all of you were aware of, because after the fact, she said, I would love to have this on my computer. So then when I'm going through this and planning ahead of time before PLCs, I can just type this up. So I shared with her the digital link as well. So I wanted to share that with you, and I'm going to move on to show you a sample. So in this particular sample, at the time, my colleague and I were working very closely with our 6-8 social studies team, because we were leading a professional development opportunity regarding the literacy and social studies. So because we were working closely, I asked her if she would be willing to sit down and try this out. I think it's important, before sharing all with you, that I want to make sure that it's meaningful for the teacher. Is this really something that they can do with their PLC group? Is it something that they felt was beneficial to them as a teacher? So Connie Larson agreed to do this, and she's given permission for me to share this out. She actually, at the time, was getting ready to plan for a Latin America mapping lab. So she went ahead and plugged in her standards here, understands geographic tools to analyze information about people, places, and environments. And then what we did is we just went through and took a few minutes, and we looked at each one of these indicators. So for A, text-based instruction engages students in reading, speaking, or writing about text. That was high. So her notes were, TCI mapping lab section of textbook provides the background information needed to help interpret the maps used in final activity. Students work in partners to gain understanding of the concepts. 5 maps and photographs are also used in the final activity. So there was a variety of different resources that the students could look at in different texts. For B, the texts are at or above the complexity level expected for the grade level and the time in the school year, and that was also high. Then, and I'm going to move there we go. For C, the texts are clear and build knowledge relevant to the content being studied, and this was a 3. So what she was thinking when she was going through this process with me is she talked about how the textbook is a good start, but more information from our current source might also be useful. And then she even started to think about, I could use iPads and I could look up specific vegetation or climate types, and just helping to work to increase their level of understanding. And so it's interesting, I'm going to share her feedback here in a minute, but this one in particular, she said in the beginning when we first were planning to sit down together and think about this, she said, I don't know how good this one's going to be to do, because this is one of my strongest lessons. This is the one that I always look forward to, because the students are so engaged in the lesson, and they offer several different texts. So she thought everything would score high. So it was interesting when we were going through this together, because she did still find some room for improvement. So you're going to notice here on the second part. So for core action 2, employ questions and tasks that are text dependent and text specific. So for the indicator here on A, questions and tasks address the text by attending to its particular structure, concepts, ideas, events, and details. This one, she actually, when she was thinking about this piece for the evidence observed or gathered, because she had all of her resources out in front of her, she only gave it a 2. So what she realized by going through this document together is that she said it might be good to add some scaffolding types of questions to make sure that they are building bridges from the textbook to the maps, mostly to help students make the connections between the texts. So this was a point that she wanted to make sure that she addressed moving forward with planning her lesson. For B, that was high. Questions and tasks require students to cite evidence from text, so that one was very high. There were many opportunities for that. C, questions and tasks require students to appropriately use academic language. Again, that was not the highest score of a 4. That was only a 3. She decided that she wanted that they might need to model or have more dialogue about the use of geography, vocab, in their responses. And then this one on D for the indicator, sequences of questions support students in delving deeper into text, data, or graphics to support inquiry and analysis. This was only a 1. So what this document did is it started to get her to think about things that she had not thought about. Was it a pretty good lesson? Were there a lot of things that the students found engaging and she enjoyed doing this lesson, and she still does? Of course. But what it did is this particular document helped her to realize these are the pieces that I want to improve. Because even though this was a strong lesson when she compared it to all of her other ones, it still was not hitting all of these different indicators. So for this last one, it was just a 1. And she put, I need to add questions to help direct the students. So this was very helpful to her. And then for core action 3, provide all students with opportunities to engage in the work of the lesson. For indicator A, the teacher provides the conditions for all students to focus on text. That was high. B, the teacher expects evidence and precision from students and probes students' answers accordingly. That was high. C was the one that she decided she needed to work on. The teacher creates the conditions for student conversations and plans tasks where students are encouraged to talk about each other's thinking. She only rated that as a 3, because when she was thinking about it, she said providing questions would help improve this. So she felt like she could get the students to interact more and use that evidence to build on each other's observations. For indicator D, that one was high. So the teacher acts on the knowledge or individual. Students to promote progress toward independence in grade level literacy tasks. So this is just one example, but I think it's a strong example, because it shows that even when you have a lesson that tends to go well, and when you look back at it over the last few years, that might be one in particular that you think, well, this is one of my best lessons, it's fun to teach, the students are engaged, and so forth. There still might be some areas of improvement, and when you actually take just a few minutes, this took us maybe 10 minutes to go through together. It really did not take long. We had a time set up, she had all of her resources out in front of her ready to go, and then we just walked through the process together, and she reflected. She really did the thinking. So you don't even necessarily, I may be ELA Literacy is my strong suit. However, I can go in and work with a math teacher on this piece, or I can go in and work with social studies. And these resources help you to do that. So you're getting really, the teacher should be doing the thinking. And this could certainly transfer over into PLC groups, and they can have good conversations. So this was the next piece I wanted to share with all of you. This was feedback that I received from Connie that she wanted to share out. She said, this has been my strongest and most engaging lesson in my current curriculum. And after completing the IQG, there are still areas that can be improved. The instructional planning guide is helpful and will assist to enhance all units. She said she would like to use this guide with her teaching partner across the hall to plan their next unit. We are creating a text set and organizing sources we find using Symbaloo to share with our students. The instructional planning guide will be helpful moving forward. And then in the end, and this is in relation to the PLC groups, the middle school social studies team could benefit from using this form during our 6-8 PLC meetings in the future. We can complete the IPG before beginning a lesson, as I have, because she was using it really for reflection, even though we were meeting together at the time, and discuss how the lesson can be improved prior to implementation. And I think that's important. So while it is important to reflect post, after the fact, I think it's also important to start thinking about those things ahead of time before you actually implement, and try to make some of those changes beforehand and then reflect to see what could still be improved. So that was the feedback. And then we have enrichment tasks. This was the part that I wanted to share with all of you as a step moving forward before our next meeting. These are a couple of options that you could look at, and I realize again that we have different audience members here. So for coaches, and this is something I will do myself too, so even though I've already done one, I think it would be fun to go back in with a different teacher and use this as a tool and share out my experiences. But we want all of you to try that as well. So for coaches, you could utilize the IPG with the teacher to dive into a lesson with them and engage in a reflective conversation using the IPG. So it's a wonderful opportunity for you to connect and talk about their curriculum, especially at the beginning of the year, because I know some of you may be in districts where they've just adopted new curriculum. So it would be great to go through and see, what is this curriculum offering? Are there any gaps? Is there anything that we need to do to help supplement and enrich this? For teachers, you could also utilize the IPG for the purpose of self-reflection with one lesson, and then share it with a colleague or with a PLC group. So especially if you do have, like Connie has another teacher across the hall who teaches the same subject matter, they can get together and talk and help to make those decisions together. So those are a couple of things that we wanted to share in terms of enrichment. And then Destiny is going to talk to you about signing up for the Core Advocate Network.
All right, so thank you so much, Lee. That's wonderful information, and something that I was piggybacking off of you in the chat while you were speaking. But I know that when I was in the classroom, I was able to utilize this tool specifically as a teacher, where I was able to go in and really understand for myself what it looked like for me to be making shifts, but also for my students. Because oftentimes teachers are so curious about, well, if I don't even know what it looks like, how do I do that? So I used it as a reflection tool because initially I was not a coach. And I think it's a really valuable resource. And again, in the chat, I see that we have another one. A question, can you use the IPG with staff members even if they are not aware of the shifts completely? Absolutely. This is a great jumping off place even, where you go in and you look at those different teacher and student actions, and then you can delve deeper into what those shifts really mean and what they look like and go deeper. But this would be a great jumping off point. Excellent question. Okay. So as we move forward, we want to encourage you that in addition to the Iowa Core Advocate Network, which is really going to focus on creating a network of Iowa educators and connecting and advocating within the state and with each other, but to also sign up for the National Student Achievement Partners Core Advocate Network. We offer some different links so that you can stay connected with them. They send out information through emails, newsletters. They have webinars as well, and these are extremely valuable. At different times, we will also share probably some of their webinars during our webinars to use as discussion points and so on. But I would go ahead, and the first link is to really connect, and so that you can sign up for the guidebook and so on. Okay, so apparently this goes to our guidebook, which I'm going to go into detail in a little bit further, Lee. So if we go back, actually let's just stay here. So there we go. So this is going to be where the guidebook is going to live on the Iowa Core Advocate Network website. And essentially what it is just an ongoing document for field members of our Iowa network. And it has all of the information that we offer during our webinars. So if you need to access different signups and links, you can go here for sort of a one-stop shop. And so you'll be able to find it there underneath the core advocates. And then if we go back to the other slide, you would sign up through this link here. And you go through and it will ask for your contact information. And you'll create a profile. And so you'll have your name, city, and all of that. And then you will have your own account with Achieve the Core as well. Okay, and then the last two items, there are separate links. So to sign up for the email and newsletter, you will sign up at this link here. And it goes through, we want to be certain that we have it. So who's doing the lifting? I'm not sure if we have the right link in there. We'll remedy that before we go. But I think if you sign up for the...
We'll double check that because I'm already signed in. So what they're looking at might be a little different.
That makes sense.
I would have to probably log out. So.
Yeah, no worries. But if you go in here, and then the last piece is student achievement partners, because they are a nonprofit. They do like to know how you're using their resources and tools. And so every time you're using them, you go in and you fill out the actions that you're doing. So for instance, you could include that you're participating in the Iowa Core Advocate Network, and over the course of this next month, you are going to take back the IPG to your school, utilize it yourself, and share it with someone else. So this is where they collect information to ensure that their materials are valuable, and you can also offer feedback. Okay, and then the second piece is specific to our Iowa network. We have developed a website, which is currently under development because we didn't have a lot to put in there just yet. But following this webinar, if you go into the ELA Literacy page, and there's nothing there yet, but you will be able to find the PowerPoint from today, the recorded webinar, as well as the recorded chat. We will also offer to you a list of the Iowa Core Advocates and their contact information. So if you would rather not be on that list, please reach out to me, Destiny Eldridge, destiny.eldridge@iowa.gov, and just let me know that you do not want to be on that list. But the idea of the network is so that people can really find out in their different areas and regionally who else is part of this work, and so that we can reach out to each other with questions and maybe even observations, and we would be able to go into each other's classrooms. We can get creative with what we do with this network. And then secondly, direct access to today's PowerPoint is through this link here. I will also follow up with an email with links to the website and so on, and the PowerPoint, so that you can access it directly and get into all of the information today. Okay, and then one other thing, if we could go back, Lee. So I added, you'll be able to see it after you go in here, but I wanted to take them, and maybe you can navigate us there, but I would like to show them how to access the Iowa Core Literacy subject pages at the Department of Ed website. And so if we go to iowacore.gov, okay, so we do have a new blog that's been posted, and we have blogs that are posted monthly, so we encourage you to read those. If you go to Educator Resources, there you go, and you go down here to Resources by Subject, we do have pages for literacy, mathematics, science, and social studies. We'll go to the literacy page. Last year, the statewide literacy leadership team came together, and we collaborated to build these pages with some really rich research and evidence-based resources for you to go through. So if we go into, if we scroll down just a little bit, Lee, we have three different buckets here. We have instructional resources, assessment resources, and professional development resources. And so I highly encourage you to go to this site and to utilize a lot of these tools. Many of the links will take you to achieve the core, but in addition to that, we have plenty more that you can explore and use in your classroom in whatever role that you play. Thank you.
Okay, we wanted to, I'm getting some feedback. Make sure everybody's muted. Okay, that's better. Okay, so for the social networking piece, I wanted to talk to you all about the new Twitter page that we have up. So one thing that I noticed several of you have done already, so you've already been kind of going through the emails that Destiny has sent and created an account. I noticed a couple of you have new accounts now for Twitter, which is wonderful. So you can actually follow at Iowa Core Advocates and each other to learn together and share ideas. So I already have the Twitter page up here. I kind of wanted to show you here. So we have Lisa, who's now following us, okay? We also have Teresa, Carla Lee is new, Amy. So we have several people who have just started to do this. You do need to make sure, obviously, that you have a Twitter account, so you'll want to create your account first. But then if you go in the search, you can type in the @Iowa Core Advocates and you can follow us. So I also want to just offer my assistance. If you have never been on Twitter before, I know several of you have been for quite some time because I was already looking through your profile pages and so forth, and you've been on for a couple of years. So, but there's a few of you who have never used Twitter for professional purposes. So please feel free that you can reach out to me if you have any questions at all, and I can help you with tech support. There is no question that you can't ask because I know it's new for some of you. So I wanted to kind of show that to all of you. And this is what our page would look like. So if you click on the Iowa Core Advocates, here we are. And it is still fairly new. So if what we would like everybody to do, and I'm going to go back to the presentation for a minute, when you tweet out, you can use the following hashtags in your tweets, and also Math is going to be doing the same. So we have hashtag Iowa Core Advocates. You can also hashtag Core Advocates in general, or hashtag Instructional Advocacy. What that does is it basically puts everything on one stream. So if I were to click this, for example, hashtag Iowa Core Advocates, it's going to have everything that has been posted so far with the Iowa Core Advocates. And we also have our Google Plus that April has started to put together as well. So we are going to continue to grow and work on these, but I just wanted to point these out to you, and hopefully by our next meeting, if you have not done so already, go ahead and create your Twitter account or reach out if you need help with that. And then try to tweet. So after the meeting today, you can share with others in your network that we do have this new Twitter page, and you can use that @Iowa Core Advocates in the tweet itself, and you can do the hashtag as well. And you could feel free to include a key takeaway from the reading that you completed the shifts. This is also something optional you can do because, as Destiny mentioned, we want to learn from each other, okay? This is a growth process for all of us. So optional, after you've completed the enrichment task, you could tweet about the IPG. You could actually copy and paste a link in there to the IPG. Talk about how you found it to be helpful when coaching or for self-reflection as a teacher. Now, I do want to kind of note, as instructional coaches, literacy coaches, etc., confidentiality is key. So you wouldn't want to share out anything, a picture of a classroom of the teacher doing it or working with the teacher unless you have their permission. But aside from that, please feel free to tweet out those celebrations and things that you found helpful in terms of those resources and what we've shared out today so far. So that is an option to do as well, and we would love to see those. Then we have a feedback form. So again, I want to just refer back. Please fill out that Padlet if you haven't done it, because it's giving us wonderful ideas of things that we can talk about in our next meetings. We're still going to be digging into resources using Achieve the Core. We're still going to be doing those deep dives into the shifts, but we also want to guide our meetings based upon your feedback and your voice. So if there are challenges coming up and so forth, we want to know what those are. Or if you have questions that you need addressed, this is the way that you are going to be able to reach out to us, because chances are if you have that challenge or if you have that question, then others in the network do as well. So to make a suggestion, ask a question, or to request more information about a topic, fill out this form that is linked in there, and Destiny's going to share that with you. And then we are going to continue to incorporate your feedback into subsequent webinars. And then here are our survey results to kind of tie things up here. We did put out a survey to try to find out from everyone which time of day would be best. And so we had the 9 to 10 option and the 3:30 to 4:30 option. And it looks like for the majority of people, the morning is going to be best. So we're going to go ahead and continue to meet from the 9 to 10 a.m. for our next meeting. So we have on the last slide, join us on the next webinar, Tuesday, October 10th, from 9 to 10 a.m. There will be a reminder link that is sent a week in advance with the Zoom. So then that way you guys can add that and be able to access that easily. And then again, we will have Lisa Potts will be on with us as well as the guest speaker, so she can help us to address some of those challenges that have already been communicated on the Padlet. So I don't know if there's anything else you want to add, Destiny. We've got about 4 minutes left.
Okay. So I think for today, we've offered a lot of information and a lot of things for you to delve deeper into. Please know that as we've dropped just sort of different sort of titles of things, I was listing some information such as text complexity, text sets, aligned lessons. Please know that in subsequent webinars, we will be addressing these topics so that we do go deeper into the shifts. But for now, we wanted to get you started with something that would be really useful right off the bat, that you can do as a hands-on activity. And please know that as we plan these next webinars, we are going to incorporate a lot of the things that we've sort of sprinkled throughout this webinar. We sincerely appreciate your dedication as educators throughout our state in Iowa, and we are really looking forward to this network, and we're really excited. So please continue to join in the conversation in between now in the next webinar on Twitter, and access the website. And please know that we will stay in contact, and we are very receptive to any and all feedback. And for those of you who are viewing this webinar after the fact and it's not live, we very much encourage you to be a part of the network through the Twitter chats, and also offer feedback through that feedback link, because we will use it to guide our next steps and so forth. We hope you have a wonderful day and take good care. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.